Cool. So let's learn how to first get our tables in place so that we can then start using JDBC template to connect to our database and then perform all the SQL queries. Now in here, if I open up run before, so I think we lost it. So we don't have the table creation anymore, and we're going to have to create that ourselves. Now with Flyway under, so let's just go here and collapse this. So under resources, you need to create a new directory and call this DB. Then inside of this directory, DB, create a new directory and call it migration. Now this has to be exactly as you see in here. So create a folder called DB, and then inside of DB folder, create another folder called migration. And inside of migration, create a new and then file. Here we're going to say version, so v1, exactly as it is, underscore, and now we have to give it a name. So I'm going to say initial and then underscore and then set up dot and then SQL. So this is SQL that we're going to use in order to create the tables and everything that we need for our database. Now in here, let me change the dialect to, so let's just say global, and then this will be Postgres. So for the project as well, Postgres, and then OK, and there we go. Cool. Now from this point onwards, what we can do is we can write some SQL. Now what I want to do first actually is let's just restart the application, and what I want you to see is something. So here we have a few things. So we've got in here, what I want you to see is that we have the logs and successfully validated one migration, and you can see creating schema history table public.flyway history, and then the current version of schema public is empty, and then migrating schema public to version 1 initial setup. Successfully applied version 1 to schema public, now at version 1. So just before we do anything, let's just try to understand what all of this means, because it's important. So if I go to my database, and in here before, remember, we said \d and we had no relations. So now let's just say \d again. And you can see that under the public schema, we have Flyway schema history and type table. The owner is Amigos Code. Let's describe this table right here. So just say \d and then Flyway schema and then history. Now press enter, and in here you can see all the columns that we have. So the script, checksum, and whatnot. So let me just say \x, so expand the display on and clear the screen, Control L, and then type select and then star from Flyway schema history, semicolon, enter, and check this out. So here we have installed rank 1, the version 1, description, initial setup. So basically it gets this from this name in here. This was the script, and the checksum is 0. The checksum is 0, installed by Amigos Code, execution time, success, true. Now, this is important. This is important that you understand. If I open up IntelliJ and then say create, so under the same file, so create initial setup.sql, so create, and then table, and let's just say customer, and let's just create an empty table like that. If I reload, this should fail. and it fails because, have a look, apply to database 0. So either revert changes to the migration or repair to update the schema history. So what is happening is that we have a migration validation error, and if I scroll up in here, so you can see that we have a migration checksum mismatch. So this is exactly what I was saying. So we applied this migration before it was empty, and now we are editing this file and we're trying to add the table called customer. And basically, because this version right here has already been applied, it doesn't work. Now, what do we do then? You might be asking, what do we do? Well, the solution for this is, if you need to add a new database change, either adding a new table, removing columns, adding sequences, and all that stuff, you create a second migration. So new file, and then V, so V, and then 2, right? So version 2, underscore, underscore, then you give it a name. So here I'm going to say customer, and then underscore, and then table.sql. Cool. At this point, we can say create table, and then customer. And in here, we can then define all the properties that we need. So we need ID, and then in here, we can define all the columns that we need. So we need ID, and then this will be big, and then int. In here, we also need, so let's have a look at our customer class in here. So we had what? So we had ID, name, email, and age. Then we need name. This is varchar, or we could say text. We need email, and then text. And finally, age, and this can just be an integer. Right, so the difference between big int and int is that this holds bigger numbers in here. And now we have our customer table in here, and we have these 4 columns. And this now is under version 2. So let's now start the application once more. And you can see that this time it worked. So application started, and if you look at the logs, migrating schema public to version 2. So the current version was 1, migrating to version 2, customer table, successfully applied 1 migration to schema public, and we're good to go. If we look back to our database, now let's type backslash, so backslash DT, and you can see that we have customer table here, right? Let's describe customer, so backslash D and then customer. And check this out. So we have the ID, name, email, as well as age. Now, obviously, we have to change these things in here. This is not correct because they have to be null, but I'm just showing you how to work with Flyway. Now, if we look also at the Flyway schema history, so let's just say select, start from Flyway schema history, and you can see that we have 2 records. So this was the initial setup, and this was the second version that we applied, and you can see the checksum. Now, obviously, if I was to, let's say that we want to add a new table here, right, for customer. If we want to say, let's say, I don't know, country, for example, right? So country. So, and then this is text, just like that. So this will fail because this has already been applied. So if I reload this, it fails with a checksum mismatch. And what we need to do really is, so if you want to add text, you say version 3. So let's just add a version 3. So version 3. And then here I'm going to say, oops. Actually, it's not deleting properly, but let me just delete like this. And then add, and then country underscore column 2 and then customer. So here, this name, you could be as long as you want. It doesn't really matter. And then OK. And now we have version 3. And we have to say alter and then table. The table that we want is customer. So customer. And then add. And then column. Country. And then, oops, can't type country today. Country. And then text. And this with semicolon, and there we go. Now, if we run this again, you can see that this works. And let me just show you. So current version, schema 2. The next one is 3. Add country colon to customer. If we look into our database, press Q here, and if I describe customer, you can see that now we have country in here. So this is basically how it works. Cool. I know this video seemed a little bit long and maybe confusing, but this is pretty much how you're meant to have control over your schema. If you have any questions, drop me a message. Otherwise, catch me on the next one.